Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we teach you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today it's a very special day because this is the first time that Coco and I have been cooking in my sister's kitchen in Winnipeg. As those of you who are my subscribers and have been following my channel know, I was in the process of moving from Eganville, and now here I am in Winnipeg for the time being in my sister's kitchen, which is just going to prove that if you know how to cook, it doesn't matter what kitchen you're in, you can still make a great meal. Today we're making a great classic comfort food, scalloped potatoes. And even though my sister normally does a keto diet, and scalloped potatoes are definitely not on that because way too many carbs, we're going to go ahead with this one because this is a special request. The last video that I did, which was the boiled ham, has been wonderfully successful, and the scalloped potatoes are something that would normally go with that, right? So we're going to go ahead with that, but we're going to put my little twist on it because, to tell you the truth, folks, if I'm making scalloped potatoes and I want something quick for just a couple of people, I have no problem with using the stuff in the package. But this is something extra special and ooey gooey creamy that you're going to love. So scalloped potatoes are basically potatoes, onions, salt and pepper, and normally they've got milk in them as your liquid, and that's about it. You bake it for around 45 minutes or so and you're good to go. But I'm not sure what is beeping. Something's beeping in this kitchen, but we'll figure it out. So we've got our potatoes here. Now I've already peeled the potatoes and I've already greased the pan that I'm going to use. So I've got this pan, it's got olive oil in it, and it looks like it's got a little bit of water in it, and that's because I was measuring out that I had the right amount of potatoes. And all I did was I took my potatoes and I laid them loosely in the pan, even before I'd sliced them or peeled them or anything, so I knew I had about the right amount of potatoes. Then I have now peeled them, so they're sitting in water so they don't discolor. If you don't have a food processor, it's okay, go ahead and slice them just the way I've sliced these onions. But we're going to use the food processor and make this really fast and easy. So this is one thing I made sure that I packed with me was this. So we're just going to zip this through. There you go. That's way easier than cutting them by hand. And we have nice thin slices. And then I've got this pot of boiling water here. Now this is an optional thing, but it really speeds up your cooking time. That you take these and you just pour them quickly into boiling water. Now we're not going to cook them the whole way with that, because if we did that we would end up, we might just as well have mashed potatoes. But we're just going to parboil them so that it will speed up our baking time. And while that's happening, we've got a pan here with a little bit of butter and a little bit of olive oil in it. And we've got one whole onion that I've just sliced in half. And then those of you who've been watching my previous videos on how to do chopping, you'll see that I've got a chef's knife. I'm holding it so it doesn't wobble in my hand. I'm not just holding it like this because then it would wiggle back and forth. I'm holding it so it stays steady. I'm keeping these fingers out of the way. And I left the root end on the onion so it didn't all fall apart. So I have a whole bunch of semicircles of onion. Just going to pop that in there. And I'm going to brown that before we put it in. Now, if you had taken just these raw potatoes and the raw onions, that would be fine. But by doing it this way, caramelizing the onions adds a depth of flavor to it. Parboiling the potatoes really speeds up your cooking time. So we'll give that a little, this is probably going to be the part of the video that for those of you that are watching on Facebook, it stretches out a little bit. So we'll just chatter a little bit about the fact that we're living in Winnipeg now. It's beautiful and sunny out, even though it's minus 25. And so for my friends in Japan and in New Zealand, where it's balmy, just keep that in mind, minus 25 in Winnipeg today. And Coco is here with me. She's wandering around down in the, watching the basement stairs, because this household has a couple of cats. And she really wants to make friends, but not happening just yet. They're being a little bit nervous here. So while that is cooking, now we're going to just put this out of the way a little bit. And we're going to make the sauce. So if you were doing it old school, you'd use about a cup or a cup and a half of milk, and that would be it. Because we're trying to be keto, even if it doesn't always work, we're at least going to add some extra fat to this. So I've got some cream here, and I've got, that's about 3/4 of a cup. And this is my secret ingredient. Those of you who watch me know I always like to have a secret ingredient. So I've got here a half of a package of cream cheese. I have put this in the microwave for about 25 seconds just to soften it a little bit, make it easier to mix. So I've got that in there. And then speaking of microwaves, if we go up here, we will find that I have a little bit of about 1/4 cup of butter. That again, it's not totally melted, but it's a little bit more, again, easy to blend. And I'm adding the butter not just for the flavor, but this will add, make it so that it browns a little better. And then I have one of these nifty little stick blenders. It doesn't matter if you don't have one of these, go ahead and mix this with a whisk or a spoon. By melting the cheese ahead of time, that makes it easier to blend. Okay, that was pretty easy. That under the road, so that's what we're going to pour on top of all these potatoes when they're ready to go in the pan. Okay, so there's our onions coming along. They're almost caramelized. I'd actually made another batch of this ahead of time, so the butter in it is what is adding to the brownness of those onions, and much more flavorful than just putting the raw onions in with just the potatoes. It would add a good half hour to the cooking time in the oven. And then we'll just have a quick little stir of these potatoes, and they're not, as you can see, they're not cooked all the way through, but they're starting to cook. So as soon as these onions are done, I'm going to drain the potatoes. I'm not going to drown them, I'm going to drain them, and start putting this whole thing together. If you want to add an extra kick to this, and you have some bacon, you know how I love those Kirkland bacon bits, or just some regular bacon that you've already cooked up and crumbled, you can add this to the mix as well. Okay, so there's our onions done and our potatoes done, and I'm just going to take these over to the sink and drain them. just like in my old kitchen, at a certain point you end up with your back, my back to you. But that's okay. All I'm doing is I've taken these potatoes and put them through a colander. There. So as you can see, when I lift up these partially cooked, they're starting to get a little bit translucent. They've got a little bit of a bend to them, so they're about half cooked. Now I'll take my pan, and it's really important that you grease your pan well with this. As much as we all love those crusty little bits around the outside of the scalloped potatoes, if you don't grease it, you're going to be cursing when you have to clean this pan at the end of it. So we're going to take about 1/3 of the potatoes and just spread them out over the bottom of the pan here. And then we're going to take about half of the onions, sprinkle that out. And then a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And if I start to sneeze, you'll have to forgive me. I've found out already today that this pepper is pretty fresh and pretty powerful here. Okay, and then another 1/3 of the potatoes. Now, if the potatoes that you had were, new potatoes, fresh potatoes, you won't need to peel them. Because we're kind of in the dead of winter here, I went the extra mile and did a good job of peeling these so that we didn't have any blemishes on them. Now I'll take the rest of the onions. And then the last of the potatoes. Now we're doing this on Facebook Live, as well as we will be doing that onto YouTube once it all gets properly edited. And once it's onto YouTube, I'll put the link in there to my my video on how to cook a boiled ham, which is a classic kind of a thing that would go with scalloped potatoes. And there we go. One last spritz of salt and pepper. And then we're going to take our other mixture of cream or milk, plus cream cheese and a little bit of butter, and just pour that over the top. And I got the mixture just about right. If it wasn't full up to, like, it doesn't have to totally cover the potatoes, but if it wasn't close to the top, just add a little bit more cream or milk to that. And that's all we have to do, except pop this in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes, which we will do right now. And just like on the professional cooking shows, at the end of 45 minutes, when we opened up the oven, this is what we would have. Here, not putting it onto the hot burner. And there we go. There is that childhood favorite of wonderful scalloped potatoes. And one of the things that you'll want to do is to just take a knife and just make sure that your potatoes that you can cut through, because otherwise it looks like you've got, you could have kind of raw potatoes in there. But what will happen is, if I can find another dish to put this out on, when we scoop this up, that cream cheese in there is what's going to give you awesome flavor. And having caramelized the onions to go with that just makes it a nice, deep, and delicious flavor. So thank you for joining us on the first episode of Hilltop Stovetop that we have filmed in Winnipeg. And look forward to hearing more from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe when you do get onto Facebook to look at these things. And then you can have a look at all the rest of the videos. And if you subscribe, then you won't miss out on any future episodes we have. So say bye-bye, Coco. She's just here waiting for her little nibbles. Okay, bye-bye, folks.